So a few weeks ago we talked about season 6 overall. It wasn't like in detail and stuff because there's so many highlight episodes that I do want to cover off today. It's a bit more than normal. I have tried to cut some down, but I may still go into a bit more detail on them. But I'll go through the ones I really want to go through and see where we're at for time and see if I can justify it. So I think the first one, I mean, I could go into bargaining and stuff like that in more detail, but I think the first one that really gave us a big push for the season was Once More with Feeling. The idea that we've got a musical episode of Buffy, because most series after a certain amount of time tend to do some kind of musical episode. It has become very much a trope. I love it when it works and it services the plot still, which I think was the hardest thing for them. Joss had wanted to do this for years, ever since he knew he had people who could sing. So it was very much a way of trying to get them together and get a story that made sense as to why suddenly people are singing and dancing. And of course we got the initial American version of the cat, Hinton Battle, playing Sweet, the demon, who was later replaced by Terry Farrell in the American version of Red Dwarf. But it was such a great piece. He's such a great dancer. Like the sort of dancing moments. I know sort of Michelle wasn't very comfortable with singing, but she does have a dance background, so they leaned on that. I know Alison really didn't want to sing at all, so they gave her like very, very little to do as much as possible. But Tony Head, like I heard his voice in this, I was like, hello. And then of course Repo, I got this album that he did with George Starr, and yeah, the guy's got a nice sort of texture to his voice. I mean, obviously yes, we'd had the little guitar pieces as well in season 4, but really this was very much like a showcasing a different dynamic, very much more of like a show tune style singing. It gave him a lot more range, and like I say, with Repo and stuff like that, you saw that kind of a lot more. And it was great, it's such a great episode. But of course it also opened the discussion on what actually happened with Buffy. Was she in an awful place? Because they assume that that's because where they opened the portal to, that's where her soul went. But no. Her spirit soul, whatever you want to call it, was in heaven. Or whatever, some kind of pleasant, good place. That was where she was. And yeah, it's hard for her to come back from that. It is hard for her to deal with that. Understandably. Coming back from the dead anyway is kind of going to be disconcerting. But she came back to a place that was hard and loud and bright and cruel, where 3 nerds are trying to attack her every week, trying to bring her down. Are you sure this isn't some weird hell dimension? But it made people realise that they were acting very selfishly. I mean, okay, as soon as the demons found out that Buffy wasn't really there, there was a lot of problems, granted. But break Faith out of jail. You're going to do it next year anyway. You could have had a Slayer there. You didn't have to bring Buffy back again. Bear in mind, it is back again. She's come back from the dead before, which is why we have faith. But, they made their choice and they have to live with it. But, we had the whole issue with, Willow changing Tara's memories after the year before, where she'd had her mind sucked out by Glory. It's the most awful thing that you can think of. After someone's been kind of defiled in a way, doing exactly the same, but thinking that it's not exactly the same because you're too reliant on magic, you're leaning on it too hard, you're using it for everything. It's become an addiction. It's why Tara can't stay. As much as she wants to help get her through it. She can't. Because she doesn't know that if one little thing changes, is she suddenly going to be back to square one? And, she tries into Tabula Rasa, but, after the whole, like, okay, so you've tried to make me forget again, so I'd stay. No. Which leads me into the other kind of big one that, the next big one I want to cover, which is really 2 parts, Smashed and Wrecked. She's got Amy back, out of a bit of a weird kind of moment of, oh, I can do that, no problem. And guided towards Rack, who is an atrocious human being. A peddler in dark magics. Is basically a dealer for magic. This is where the addiction metaphors really came in. And, he is a dealer. He's giving these people these hits of magic. And, she goes there and she gets super high. She's doing the whole kind of Black Cat Bone by Leica, dancing on the ceiling. But she takes Dawn along at one point. She's just like, hey, just come with me, it's fine, it's going to be cool. And Dawn's kind of scared and not in a great place herself either, at the moment. And she puts Dawn's life in danger and suddenly becomes persona non grata with people. Willow is very much... I don't know if there's a place below rock bottom, because I think that's where she is here. She really does hit it. There are some people who I can see cry, like, acting cry, and they'll get me regardless. And Alison Hannigan's one of those people. She does it really well. The grief that she has here, knowing that she's messed up in a big way, but she was so far gone. And, this starts a kind of period of, like, magic rehab for her, which I think we needed. I think, we wanted to see this escalating dependency, don't get me wrong, but we wanted to see that she was trying to move past it as well, which is when the end of the season has a lot more of an impact. So for the rest of this year, she's trying her hardest not to do too much magic, and she slowly but surely getting the courage back to go and ask Tara out. Why not? I'll see. And there are a few missteps along the way where she thinks she's possibly involved with someone already, but she does try to get a relationship back together. But it's not all going to work out. But we'll get there. I think before we get to that point, we need to talk about something that I completely forgot in the previous video, the overview, because I didn't want to talk about it in the highlights, but I'm going to have to add it in because I forgot about it because I'm a silly person, and that's Hell's Bells. We've had this building thing since, the world's going to end last year, let's get married, and them announcing it this year, and Xander basically feeling rushed into marriage, and the whole kind of fallout of that. You've had also in Smash and Wrecked, we had the whole relationship situation with Spike and Buffy coming to a weird head. Where the only kind of comfort she feels is with Spike. She's got this weird solace in someone she supposedly hates and can't stand. So, of course, he turns up with some skank on his arm, and, an old guy turns up and says to Xander, this is not what you want. Your future's going to be terrible. And it terrifies him so much, he sees his life as it could be. He gets violent with Anya and does all sorts of things that, he hates his dad for being like. And of course, he's got his dad and, his family there, and as a reminder of how bad a family can be. And it's kind of shown at the end that this guy only showed him what he already feared, because it was really just someone who Anya had wronged before, and he wanted to screw up her happiness. Whilst his family are there and they're awful and, not understanding the demons or circus folk, he can rise above that. He can get past it if he chooses. But he really doesn't want to get married. He's not ready for it. And he's clearly railroaded, but it does lead us to Anya's return to demonhood. But it's just such an interesting piece, the idea that you can sometimes get railroaded into things and you're not ready for them. Again, a part of the whole season arc of life and adulthood is scary. I don't like it. That's what I really wanted to say. It was just like, obviously, that's the dynamic change, and I should have covered it last time. What I really wanted to talk about now is normal again. I said last time I'd talk about it, and it gets me. Like I say, it's been done before, the idea that, someone's reality that we believe is just a delusion. We're flitting between the two. It's after she's stabbed by this kind of demon that has like a thing on it that causes you hallucinations. But the idea is, her hallucination is that Sunnydale's an hallucination. And whilst I've said that the theme of this year is very much adulthood's kind of bad, I think there is also a theme of trust. There is the trust in Willow that gets eroded. The trust in a relationship between Xander and Anya. Here we have the trust in the Slayer to rise above all bad things that come her way. The trust in her as a sister, as a friend, when she's trying to kill them to escape the delusion, because that's what the kind doctor and her parents are telling her. kind of like with Happy Death Day to You, she has a chance, in a way, of being with her mother again. And that is a very strong draw for her, clearly. But it can't be. And the moment that I said in the overview that I really, really loved is the moment where she kind of turns, and it's just like, says goodbye to Joyce and Hank. She can't deal, she's so conflicted, and I mean, even leading up to it, this emotional conflict she's portraying. She's, unlike Alison Hannigan, Sarah Michelle Gellar is not someone who can cry in anything and make me feel it. But the distress she feels, maybe it's my own psychological issues, but the distress she feels before she kind of goes, you know what, as wonderful as it is to have you back, the delusion's more real to me now, if that's what it is.
You're right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Her letting go just really is a moment that is so impactful. And there's probably people out there who just go, oh, it's a bit mawkish and rubbish, but it got me. Like I say, maybe like, what you bring to things, my own sort of applicability. But of course, we've got to close out this this highlight reel with the last four. Tara and Willow seem to be back together. Everything's hunky-dory. The trio seem to be vanquished. It's great, we've got them out of the way, but Warren goes and gets a gun. Fires wildly in the back garden, and Tara is killed. Weirdly enough, on the same episode that she's finally added as a series regular. I hate you, Joss. Please, I hope Joss watches this, because I hate you for that. I felt it going into the episode. I was like, she's been added as a series regular, what's going on? It's a bit weird, just so close to the end, because they're always about 22 episodes. They're always that long. Apart from the first one, because it was a fill-in. But they're always the same length. So I knew this was near the end. Why add them right at the end? Why not just wait until season 7? There's something amiss. And yeah, he did us. He done us dirty. But then we have the grief. We have Willow shouting down a god, like I said in the last one. But it's a human death. It's not magical. So you can't help. And Willow, in a very Star Wars kind of way, turns to the dark side and just goes on a rampage trying to kill all of them. She ends up flaying Warren alive. Really horrific kind of scene, because she makes it so he can't scream like Tara. Wants him to experience the pain. And then she goes after Jonathan and Andrew, whilst the rest of them are trying to protect them, because it's like, look, Willow, we know you're still Willow in there. All this anger and hatred and rage, basically. There is still Willow in there who's got to deal with this afterwards. We don't want that. You've already done one. Stop. We will put you down if we have to. And she's got this wonderful arrogance. It's like, oh, yeah, you'd like to try, wouldn't you? And of course, then we got the wonderful dramatic return of Giles opening the door, just like, I'd like to, sort of challenge that. And yeah, she gets into a fight with him, and like I say, she drains his magics. There was hope, there was love, there was positivity in it. There was a way in. There was a chink in the armour. So once she's made this realisation that there's so much suffering in the world, where every single place she needs to end the world. So she goes to try and do this. And Xander's bamfed up there. And he reaches her. He tells her the stories of yellow crayons, which apparently aren't the only stories from kindergarten. Not all of them does he come out in a good light, as we'll find out next year. But he just goes up and appeals to her good nature, appeals to her to calm down, to calm down and to come down. It's bad that Tara's dead, but this is too much. I want to live. Brings her down, and that leads us into her rehabilitation. I think these episodes I've chosen really are the linchpins of the season. It's very much about the really bad things, and kind of learning things about each other, learning things about themselves, and just wanting the pain to go away, particularly in the last two sections. But you can't just make everything go away. We have to soldier on, we have to push through. And we get a year of real heavy, bad darkness, tempered with some great silliness. And I really cannot wait to talk about Season 7, the last year, where we get so many arcs closed off, so many great callbacks in a love letter from Buffy to Buffy. And, I think, to the fans. Very much a way of saying thank you for being with us these last years. So, I hope you'll join me for that. But until then, as always, thank you for watching, and take care.